there need to be more people at college universities saying no. On a moral standpoint, this guy is a terrible human being to be the leader of young men. And if you're going to cover up more of his bad humaning and bad leadership, because there is nobody who can tell me Urban Meyer is fit to lead young men. He is fit to win football games. That's fine. But if that's your only objective as a college football program, then you need to take the tag of amateurism off and pay the damn kids. Because if that's all you're worried about, when you go into those homes and you continue to say, well, we're offering you a free education, and we're going to help mold the minds of these young men, and we're going to help make them the leaders of the next generation, you're fucking lying when you allow a guy like Urban Meyer, human trash, to run your program.
The only thing that scares me about him is he loves hunting, which means he has guns. And eventually, he's going to wind up snapping, too.
No, see, you're wrong. He's not the kind of personality snap. You know why? Doesn't care. He honestly doesn't seem to care about anything. He doesn't care about winning football games. He doesn't care about feeding goldfish.
Oh.
It's time to get things started on the most sensational, inspirational, celebrational, motivational.
Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in to Off Base Sports Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Jason Vinicki Critchlow. This week's episode will be a little bit different in that I did a couple of segments with a couple of different people, so those will be spliced together. And, of course, so you'll get a little different feel, a little MMA talk, UFC 231, weight cutting, and potential 165 weight class, followed up with frequent co-host Todd, where we talk car packs being fired. So please take a minute, subscribe, rate, review. We're on iTunes, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher. Not SoundCloud, I don't know why I said that. Stitcher, CastBox, Satchel, Spotify. You can find us there. You can find us on Facebook at Off Base Sports Podcast, on Instagram and Twitter at Off Base Sports. Give us a subscribe. Give us a follow. Interact with us. We'd love to hear from you. Love to build this audience even more. And again, thanks. Big shout out to Mike of MMA with Mike podcast, who called in to do the MMA segment with me. You can follow him at MMA W Mike on Twitter, and his podcast is MMA with Mike. And with no further ado, we will get into the episode. Talk to you guys later. Hi, everybody. I'm being joined here on the phone by MMA with Mike. Check him out on his podcast, MMA with Mike. It's available on iTunes and hosted on Wildfire. How are you doing today, Mike?
What's going on, brother? I'm doing good. Thank you for asking. I hope all is well, and congratulations on getting your podcast rolling here. I couldn't help myself when I saw your tweet pop up. I wanted to get involved and interact a bit because I record my podcast usually within the next few hours here in this upcoming window. So while it's fresh on the mind, might as well talk some more MMA action. Seems like there's a lot of it coming up this weekend, headlined by the UFC up in Toronto. Yeah, we got a big series of fights coming up this weekend. Yeah, man.
So
you kind of have one of those like Canadian accents. It's kind of like a Middle Eastern accent. Where are you from? Indiana.
So I'm from here over in the Middle West.
Midwest, that's what I meant. Not Middle East. What am I saying? All right, I'm good. Sorry, continue.
Oh no, so that's all right by me. I'm just working on getting everything up and running myself. So as I went through and downloaded some of your old episodes. So if anybody out there is listening, check it out. MMA with Mike. I'm sure it's on iTunes, Google. It's on Wildfire Sports Radio.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thank you. And of course, I'll share all your episodes too. I have hopefully I'll be at over 2,000 followers by the end of this weekend or next week. Trying to grow out my Twitter as well. Yeah, it's at MMA with Mike, MMA W Mike, and I'm a syndicated podcast over here. I'm based in San Diego, which happens to be a pretty big MMA hub in America, especially. But I'm based. My company that hosts me, they're based back in Philadelphia, like tri-state area sports market. They have a big host. They have some ex-Eagles. They have a lot of Sixers type podcasts. So it's fun. If I ever do go back east, I'll be able to link up with some people. So it's good to make friends with podcasts as I'm growing here. You know, we're all kind of grassroots operations. So it's good to make buddies here. And you never know down the road, maybe I'll be calling you for a fill-in on one of my shows or other way around.
Absolutely. That's always the goal, right? Make as many friends as you can.
Yeah, man, for sure.
I have to say that's one of the things I'm terrible at is getting my Twitter out there. I'm always on my personal Twitter, not my own page Twitter.
Man. You know what I do? I have a little whiteboard because I work from home anyway, but I have a whiteboard with a little marker that I keep on my desk, and I just have like some little notes on the bottom. So if I look, I can't help. Even if I'm like eating off the thing, I'll get a reminder to at least go onto my Twitter and like put like an hour or half hour toward just like growing it. And then it's funny, like the way I am is I'm such a big fan of MMA, UFC mainly. I get excited. Most UFC fans, MMA fans come out on the weekends is what I'm trying to say. And they come out on Twitter and forums like YouTube and stuff like that. So it comes natural to me in a way. That's why I'm excited to talk MMA now. Did you want to talk about UFC 231 or what?
Yep, I think that's what we were planning on starting with because I'm sure it was exciting for the listeners there to listen to us talk about Twitter followers. They're like,
yeah, exactly.
Get to the point, guys. We're not here for that.
Yeah, right. Sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, usually, I don't know how you. Well, actually, I do know how you do your show because, like I said, I listened to a few episodes today. Usually, I try to stay to the main card. You know, I know most fans aren't tuning in for 7 hours worth of the UFC fights, and hopefully,
most fans aren't for sure.
Hopefully, the UFC can get that together. Like, come on, gonna have a bunch of cards next year. Maybe not make them so long.
Yeah, I've been even hearing more pleas about people asking for less fights. I think some fighters and some media folks have come out and said less fights the better. But I'm not sure how that'll work because it seems like the roster of fighters is growing quite a bit.
Well, ESPN's going to want to make some money back, so I'm sure we'll have plenty of fights no matter what.
Slowly but surely, it seems like they're getting that done.
So kind of the first fight I think up on the main card is, and I'm going to butcher these names, there's no doubt about it. Santos is easy, and that's a light heavyweight tilt. So you're the expert in the MMA area, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, man, sure. So Jimmy Manuwa and Thiago Santos, both of these guys are like killers of the division. Jimmy Manuwa just this time last year was probably the number one contender to get a fight with Daniel Cormier, and then he got knocked out by Volkan Ozdemir. Since then, he's had another tough decision loss. That might have even been his last fight. And he's going up against a killer here in Thiago Santos, who's in his prime, who just came out of a hometown TKO, I believe, over Eric Anders, however you pronounce it, the former Alabama football player, who I believe is fighting on this card as well. Santos is just a killer. He's ranked lower at number 15, essentially, compared to Manuwa's number 7 ranking. But that's just how it works in MMA. You know how it is. Santos is the guy. He's probably going to be the favorite. I haven't checked Vegas' lines on him, but I think we see Santos actually get a first or second round TKO victory. I just think where Manuwa's at in his career, I don't ever think he's going to get that title shot or get that belt wrapped around him as opposed to Santos, who I think is on his way to being a champion.
Yeah, I was kind of seeing it the same way. It's always fun to watch some of these older fighters hang on. At 38, he's definitely not old by some of the even recent UFC
he started
standards.
Late a little bit, but yeah.
But I mean, still at 38, you're obviously closer to the end, and particularly when you're in the division with John Jones, chances to get that belt are going to be tough.
Yeah, seriously, especially with John Jones back in town. Yeah, good point.
So I think that
it's going to be a fun matchup.
But I was thinking, I think Santos takes care of it in the first round. I think he likes to get in there and he likes to get to work, and I think it'll be a fun fight for the fans, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited for that one. These guys are powerful.
Yes.
Throwing bricks. It's always exciting.
I just hope it goes the way we think it will go and doesn't go the way that Louis Ngannou went for us, where you had two other similar guys, and then it just like they just looked at each other.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Ngannou brought just the fear of death into the octagon, and then he was coming off a loss. He seemed like such a little baby out there, so scared of he didn't want to get knocked down in front of everybody. So him and Derek Lewis, that standstill, man, God, I hope it's not like that. Knock on wood, jeez.
Again, I don't feel like these two guys are those guys, so I think we'll be safe there.
Yeah, it's true.
And then the next fight, we're going to have Dawodu versus Bochniak.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, did you want me to start off on this? My bad.
Yeah, I'll let you start off on every one of the fights.
Yes, sir. All right, so Hakeem Dawodu, he's actually a Canadian. He fights out of Calgary, I think Alberta. He has a great record. He's 8-1. However, he does have a loss in the UFC, his debut in the UFC, rather. which was in 2018. So this would be his third fight, which is great for an incomer in his first year, 3 fights in the organization. Definitely going to make a good impression. His style is exciting, and the type of striking and athleticism he brings. He looks like he's like ripped. I don't want to curse. Can I curse on here?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's.
He's ripped. He's ripped as shit. He looks like somebody who's going to take this fight. I won't be surprised if Vegas lists him as the favorite, but he went. I don't mean to ramble on here. He went to a decision victory over Austin Arnett. In terms of this game having a lot of levels, I view Austin Arnett as being very low. He should, in my opinion, for being new to the UFC, if he was truly as good as people were saying, he would have finished Austin Arnett. And now he's going against Kyle Bochniak, who's probably going to be voted into the fight of the year with Zabit Makhachev. Or no, Zabit. I'm butchering his last name. I'm forgetting Zabit's last name, but that could be fight of the year. I mean, he's an absolute killer. They threw hundreds of significant strikes. I don't know if do you remember that fight? It went all 3 rounds.
Yeah, that was a amazing fight to watch. And if you missed it,
man,
get on Fight Pass and check it out, people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Exactly. Shout out Fight Pass. But for that reason, I think the guy went to a decision with Austin Arnett. Now he's coming into a Bochniak who not only showed the heart and aggression and willing to bang, but he has the experience now against a dude people won't shut up about in Zabit. So.
Yeah, again,
what are you thinking?
I'm thinking exactly the same. I've kind of looked at this card, and it was kind of interesting because almost everybody who has the reach advantage, I think, is going to be the underdog in the fights, which is normally, not something you would say in the fight game. But again, like you said, it's just a guy who's so new and so untested, and even in his kind of gimme fights, he struggled more than he should. And then, you've got a guy who's showing kind of the heart of the champion already, against a guy who likely is headed towards, a title bout soon.
Exactly.
So I don't think there's a favorable outcome.
It's funny how MMA works, because I look at this matchup from if you could put on a different hat and say anything can happen in this first minute or two with how explosive Hakeem is, or that he's shown to be. He can land that combination, and then that fight that Bochniak did have against Zabit was in his was at a hometown card, so there's always that factor that kind of brings a human to another level there, fighting in front of his family and friends and shit. So I don't know, it's crazy. Who knows how it all adds up and shakes out? But I'm really excited to see it. I don't think if it goes to a decision, it should be a really good fight.
Yeah, as I say, this card is kind of shaping up to be what early 230 looked like it was going to be for me, and then 230 just kind of fell apart. Unfortunately.
It did.
So hopefully people save their $70 for this week and get this card, because I think it's going to be well worth the price of admission. Like I said, you never know, and that's the fun of MMA, even more so than boxing. In boxing, you can almost always kind of predict the fight within pretty close reason, whereas in MMA, you have so many different ways to finish a fight, and again, coming in cold, everybody's susceptible cold.
True. Did you catch the boxing match? What are your thoughts on the Wilder Fury decision?
I mean, that was boxing 101. Hey, let's make sure we have really bad judges, so that way if it goes to the judges, we could easily have a split decision to get us a rematch so we can all make more money.
Exactly. I just really hope a part of me wants to think that they're really not being that obvious and like setting up a rematch. The fighters themselves weren't as vocal about the rematch, but could be the owners kind of licking their chops back there. But yeah, Tyson definitely, he seemed like Tyson Fury showed some quality boxing skills, and Fury's just a banger, huh? Or Wilder's just a banger.
And again, a great opportunity for all of us in the Twitterverse to use the Undertaker GIF. So that was awesome. Just a bonus win from that fight. I mean,
exactly. That was enjoyable.
And you hate that boxing ends up with that kind of controversy around the scorecards after such a fight, though. That should have been everything they wanted to sell the sport when they need to sell it the most. Like, got a 12-round banger here, guys.
How many guys would not have gotten up in the 12th round, right? Like, a lot of guys, you got to think 8 out of 10 guys are not getting up.
No, not by then, because you're gassed.
Maybe even like 9 out of 10 guys aren't getting up.
But and on the other side of that, how many guys are throwing those kind of combos in the 12th round? Like,
exactly, that much explosion. That's why when he went down, my brain was like, it almost gave Deontay Wilder the fight. I was like, wow, he just won this in the 12th. So when they came up as a draw, that's why I didn't really feel as bad, because I was like, well, Deontay kind of won this, but this dude's a zombie. So
I mean, Wilder thought he walked it off. That's for sure. He's like, wait, what? He's up?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not ready for this.
Yeah, man. But I didn't mean to take us too far off the rails there into boxing.
Anybody who listens to me is used to going off the rails and around the corner and back eventually where we're actually trying to go. And speaking of back to where we were going, that'll move us up to the welterweight tilt on the main card. And that's Oliveira versus Nelson.
Oh, man, I'm excited for this. I have quite the opinion on this. Man, Cowboy Alex Oliveira, he looks like somebody's got to check this dude's birth certificate. He's pitching in the Little League World Series. He looks like he's 40. He's listed as recently turning 30, I think. But I love his fighting style. He's so explosive. He has that. I think it might have even been Fight of the Year in 2017 with Yancy Medeiros. I'm not 100% sure. Or maybe they gave it to a Justin Gaethje. But he is just a killer. And I think he's come out. I went through his last few fights a few days ago. I'm not exactly sure, but I think he got a relatively early finish in his last time coming out. I think he beat a Carlos Condit. And he's coming against a Gunnar Nelson who, although has shown elite qualities and elite streaks in his fights, when he gets inside the octagon, he's been so damn inactive. It seems like he always has an excuse. And to me, I personally think he's softened up a little bit. So I think that he's going to come into a very active, explosive Alex Oliveira who's going to either win by decision or submission, TKO. I just see Oliveira beating Gunnar Nelson here, which is weird to say that. But yeah,
I was going to say, this kind of, I think this was probably my second hardest one to pick on this card overall. I do think eventually Oliveira does come out on top, just like you said. Not that, they talk a lot about ring rust or cage rust or any of that.
Yeah.
And there are some guys who can get over that, no problem. They come out after a couple years off, and it's like they never missed a beat because they just train so hard and they're so active. But like you said with Nelson, it starts to seem like there's always a reason, and it starts to be, are you even training that much then if you're always coming up with a reason you can't fight?
I know. He's he has these interviews with Ariel Helwani, and it looks like he's sitting in like Indian style on a rug with little kids around wearing Uggs and shit. It's like, Gunnar, come on, dude. We're us American fans think you're this lumberjack killer, all stoic and whatnot. And here you are yes, I'm just teaching kids and getting ready for my next fight, but I'm only going to pick one I want. Seems like he got backed into a corner here. So I mean, I'd be okay. Obviously, as fans, it'd be cool if he won, but I'd be happier for Oliveira.
I was going to say, I don't think there's a bad winner in this fight.
No, you're right.
You're not going to be mad. It's just another case of that welterweight division being so stacked that even whoever wins is still just kind of stuck in the mud in the middle there. Unfortunately, in that division, you're just not going up far with even another big win. So that's just going to be a tough spot, and I think we'll get into that here after the next couple fights, one of our solutions on how to fix that problem.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, I was going to say, I think inactivity breeds inactivity unless you're just one of those special rare breeds of guys.
Yeah, the whole I don't believe in ring rust thing is onset delusion because of dementia, whatever. Conor McGregor clearly showed it in his fight with Khabib. I mean, even his coach said it. It's just, when you're not in there fighting people, it's I don't know. It's like when a football player comes back, you got to get back to game speed.
I mean, yeah, we've seen that specifically in basketball this year with Gordon Hayward. Even in probably the easiest sport to come back in, it's still just trying to get in the flow. And in combat sports, there's nothing getting punched in the face unless you're getting punched in the face.
Absolutely. Gordon, it's a shame. It seems like I'm not sure where he's at. I would have liked to see him not come out of the gate with I think he's under some form of minute restriction, right? I think he's held under 30 minutes. He just put up his first 30-point game. They're dumping water on him. He was putting up 30, 40 points on the regular a couple of years back, right?
Right.
It's funny to see where we're at. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting to see how it all shakes out. I like to let them loose.
I think that's always one where as a teammate, though, you always want to have your guys back when they've coming back from that kind of injury. So,
yeah, that's true. Kyrie did go to Duke. He's a little corny.
Yeah.
like Gordon. No, I'm just kidding.
No, they are. It's okay. It's all right to speak the truth every once in a while.
I'm a Sixers fan, so we got quite impatient during the process, especially when we were restricting Embiid for such a long period of time. Like, you got to a point where you had a weapon, and there's so many close games or scenarios where you really felt that you weren't utilizing, your guys. And I don't know. I feel like I would like – it's weird. Boston feels like they're one big move away from having that team that they seemed like they were – identifying themselves as in the playoffs last year when they looked so elite without Kyrie Irving. I don't want to say getting rid of Kyrie's the move, but I don't like seeing guys like Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Tatum only getting 20-something minutes a game. It's like, what? These dudes are like 20, 30, 24 years old, and they're beasts. Like, feed them. Let them run. I don't know,
Exactly. I mean, they have to fix their roster logjam.
Gets me pissed off.
It's great to say you have all these pieces and you can just sub in, sub out, switch. You need all these switchable wings, but it's like for developmental players, you got to have time. You've got to have touches, and the Sixers are the perfect example of that. Like, fortunately, they managed Embiid well, and he didn't turn into Greg Oden, and now you get to see him be what's essentially he's going to turn into as a perennial MVP candidate.
No, exactly. No, I was so happy keeping them out of. I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to clarify. So happy them keeping him out completely when they needed to, and even the first year when they had him on a minute restriction. I remember they came out. I think even 2 years ago, or even maybe the start of last year, he was under restriction as well. We were all just like, "Yo, come on, guys." But then we let him loose eventually amidst last year. So I'm just happy that's the case. I'm not babying him too much.
No, and that was another team that started to acquire a ton of assets, and then, Minnesota needs to get rid of Jimmy Butler because he's going to torpedo their locker room. Here you guys go.
Yeah.
Here's some pieces that we don't need anymore. We'll fix our roster logjam. Add a guy who's a closer and a perimeter defender.
Exactly. You see it. That's it right there. The lockdown defense and the ability to have someone to go to, because if you're a Sixers fan, especially, all we've seen in those last 5-10 seconds with the game on the line is a turnover from a lazy Joel pass or Simmons Redick type connection, a Covington who's no longer there, just sloppy play. Butler, man, I love it. Love it.
And now I'm going to do a very cheesy segue. Speaking of closers,
no worries.
I'm going to get back to I feel bad. Like I said, this podcast wonders.
Now we're going to talk about Mariano Rivera.
Yeah. No, we're going to talk about Joanna and Jacek versus Valentina Shevchenko, which is
man.
I think.
Yeah, what do you start off on this one? I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
Well, I think this one's not going to be as good as most people hope it will be. I think
okay.
they have a pretty lengthy track record of these two fighting each other in kickboxing to kind of know how it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
I think Shevchenko takes this, and I think she takes it in the first round.
Yeah, exactly. I think I want that to be the case, and if we're like in a movie here and these guys, they're battling out, that's what should happen. But Valentina has come out in a lot of her fights so strategic and slightly hesitant in that first round, especially with a killer like Nunez. But she does have tendencies to sit back, and sometimes that leads to stagnant play. So if Joanna, I feel like, and her team are identifying that and they end up giving Valentina a lot of pressure, they're either going to get lucky and catch her, or they're just going to ignite something they can't handle. And like you said, Valentina will finish her. I just have a weird feeling they're going to play chess and just stand up and play the distance game, and end up being like a Muay Thai kickboxing type bout. And like you said, I see Valentina winning by dominant decision. However, it could be a TKO if she gets that killer instinct in her. I just feel like Joanna's going to do everything she can, especially it is a 5-round fight. So shit. I mean, God, anything can happen. I don't know how they're going to game plan here. They're such veterans.
I was going to say, this does have the potential to end up looking a whole lot like Till Thompson at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely something like that. Exactly. Maybe even some of the Thompson-Woodley fights. Who knows?
Or it's more, it should have been better, but ends up being way too strategic.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Valentina for sure, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think whether it's TKO or decision, I think as much as people want to see Jacek get back to being a champion, I think, unfortunately, her time is, she's an ideal fit at 115. At 125, she's going to be a little small.
I was just going to bring up the weight. We're talking about Valentina, she's going down, right?
Correct.
So she's already the larger athlete. Look at her build. I mean, Joanna, when she was matched up against Rose, until they were in the octagon actually fighting each other, you were able to tell. I mean, they are very similar build. Joanna by no means is this big physical threat. It's just this mental game, and her face and the energy can really be intimidating, especially with that striking when she really invests in it and hunkers down and anchors in. She almost becomes like a really good boxer. But like sometimes lately, I feel like she's thought a lot, and Joanna's become someone who dances a little bit. So we'll see what goes on. I'm curious. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's good. It's exactly kind of what I was thinking is, and again, when you're fighting those bigger fighters, and this is anybody who listens to my podcast regularly knows how I feel about the weight cutting and the need to kind of fix that. It's a bigger deal than people think it is when you're fighting somebody who's going to probably outweigh you by 15 or 20 pounds on fight day.
Yeah, exactly.
And then speaking of weight cutting issues, that'll get us into our main event for the night. I forgot to look up who's
Segway City.
And I forgot to look up who's the alternate on this, but we have Max Holloway versus Ortega for the main event.
Yes, sir.
So what are your thoughts on that one?
I'm super stoked. There's been a new, my thoughts on this haven't changed essentially since it was first matched up, where Holloway ended up pulling out due to those concussion symptoms, where the rumors came out. Ultimately, what I believe was a sparring session that went wrong. I think he got caught. He ended up getting concussed because of it. And during that fight week, it was clear he ended up pulling out. Here it comes back full circle to Ortega, and I think that's made T-City a slight bit impatient. So if anything, to couple with the first time this is a title shot for him, if he does come in there with a little bit of impatience, I'm hoping that doesn't throw off his game. Now, as a fan and analyzing this matchup as two fighters here, I mean, Brian Ortega is someone I've always watched. I think his boxing is I think he has a lot of power behind his punches. He punches up, and he stays real tight. He keeps his hands up and high, great feet. Obviously that lethal, probably the best jiu-jitsu, even with guys like Jacare, Damian Maia. I think he has some of the best lethal submission type jiu-jitsu grappling, like offensive jiu-jitsu in the game. I just can't see him losing. He has that big caveman head and chin. He can take a punch. Holloway can take a punch. But we did see him lose. He was young. We saw him lost to a McGregor. Since then, his freestyle, unorthodox boxing people up has worked. He doesn't throw as many kicks as a guy like Barbosa or Ferguson. I know I'm jumping up a division there just stylistically, but I don't know, bro. This one's crazy. I think we see Ortega winning. Like, I think Ortega just fucking does it. I think he gets in that dark space and he sees all red, and I think he lands like one of those guillotines, boxes him up, just does something. And against Holloway's very, very, I think he might be a brown belt, might even be a black belt in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu himself. So I think Holloway's boxing isn't going to be enough. I think he's going against speed and better boxing in Ortega. So I'm taking Ortega, man. I don't know how, but Ortega.
I was going to say, sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there, but yeah.
No, you're good.
I kind of ended up at the same place as Ortega, but it was very tough to call. Because like you said, they're both so good on their feet. They both have amazing chins. They're both very good on the ground. Again, so it was super tough. The thing that worries me the most about this fight is, because I don't think, I know you said you think the concussion was sparring gone wrong. Sometimes drastic weight cutting can lead to concussion-like symptoms. And I know Holloway missed weight before, and he's had other issues. Yeah. He taking that Khabib fight on 1 week's notice was really
short
tough.
Notice. Yeah,
but
that
still,
was stupid.
But
borderline stupid.
But making 55 shouldn't be as hard as 40. Wasn't like he was being asked to cut all the way to 45 for that one. But it's still part of a pattern of not quite being ready.
I mean, you got to figure, in order to win 11 times in the division, however many times he won in a row since that McGregor fight, I mean, God, it's just, I mean, to be honest with you, I wasn't as familiar. I didn't know he had weight cutting issues. I did hear some whispers of that coming in to this fight again after everything that went down. But man, I'm looking at it again here, and I'm curious to see what these guys look like when the fight starts, considering that Holloway does have quite a significant height advantage at nearly at 5'11" as opposed to Ortega. I didn't realize he was only 5'8". That's kind of interesting to me because if Holloway wants to play that outside game, wail his arms around, pick his angles, maybe he can catch Ortega kind of staying stiff and stuck in the mud. Ortega did stay in front of Renato Moicano for a full 3 rounds essentially before landing that defensive guillotine there at the end of the 3rd round against an up-and-coming another title contender in Renato Moicano. And I don't know, man. He got pieced up there. He was losing on the cards. Maybe that could happen to Holloway. It could go either way. Shit. Now I'm talking myself out of it.
Well, I was going to say, the thing to remember is even though Holloway's 3 inches taller, the reach is still both 69 inches. So Ortega doesn't get as much of advantage from the height as he should.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking at that. I was like, oh, but I mean, I'm just curious as like when they square up, like who knows? Like, I wonder who gets to that weight more comfortably at the end of the day, and if there will be a significant size difference. It's something I haven't thought about until just now. But I didn't really think about actual size. But like you said, I mean, the reach is there. Ortega's got those monkey arms and that caveman head. Should be good.
Well, and Ortega is, I mean, he's typically the bigger guy walking around. And again, I hope Holloway worked on his weight cutting plan because again, you should have, with enough notice, he should have started almost 4 weeks ago cutting his weight for this fight. To where you get just down to the water weight. And I did look it up. Moicano is the backup fighter in case one of them does miss weight, which I wouldn't be disappointed to see.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes sense. He wasn't on the card, right? I think the guy Bestick or whatever got canceled.
Correct.
Something like, and yeah, it was funny. Artem Lobov made a play for it. That was kind of.
It's like Artem, no. Like we know you like to fight.
Exactly. No.
You're not not getting a 13-0 guy. Sorry.
Exactly. It's like, what the fuck, dude?
Like, please, Artem, take some time off. Work on anything.
Artem, yeah, right?
Like,
Jesus.
Trust me.
It's like you just lost. Like, how many times in the last few fights?
If you weren't Connor's friend, you'd be struggling to get in the professional fight league right now.
Yeah, Dylan Danis, too, man. I don't get it. It's like these guys don't realize that they're like groupies. Like, Dylan Danis is acting like he's swaggy wearing a proper whiskey t-shirt, like he's like a brand ambassador working like under a tent for McGregor somewhere, like a airport. And he sits there and he posts his picture and calling McGregor like his brother and stuff like that, calling himself the face of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's just, I wonder without Conor McGregor as their BFF, how pumped up they'd be and shit, like how on their high horse.
Right.
I'd love to spar with a guy like Danis. If there was no kicking or jiu-jitsu involved, I'd love to get a chance to punch him in the face, man. It's amazing how some of these MMA fighters, the last thing I'm going to say, it's amazing how some of these MMA specific fighters have weak boxing. Like they literally, their fundamentals are just something that's really not emphasized on enough. And that's why you see champions like Holloway and Ortega in a fucking title shot because they have elite boxing, one unorthodox, one more conventional. But yeah.
No, and Danis definitely has a punchable face. He's definitely a guy.
Oh my God, he's got a big punchable face. He looks like those average Joe dummies you get at like a Dick's or Sports Authority. His face looks like.
But yeah, I mean, the boxing is definitely something I think more guys are working on and women, just because typically, as the UFC does more research and they turn out those reports, it shows that typically the person who wins significant striking wins the fight most of the time. No matter what your jiu-jitsu skill level is.
It's weird because somebody can get in that boxing mindset. It's weird what can come out or shake out when a fight actually goes down because sometimes it seems like a lot of fighters nowadays are losing that killer instinct. Like Hoist Gracie talked about it somewhat recently. Like when you go out there and you're ready to take control of the ring and just completely take over and demoralize the other person. Like that gets lost a lot, especially in the female fighters. You see them playing that point game where they just stand in front of each other so content, just taking shots, delivering shots. You know what I mean? Just like waiting for the round to be over. And it seeped into certain male fighters as well. And that's something I've been keeping my eye on lately. It's hard to articulate and really share that view with a lot of people, but yeah, whatever.
No, I mean, I think it's one of the things that makes people love the Diaz brothers as much as they do, even as inactive as they tend to be, is because when they're going out there to leave everything they got on the ring. They ain't playing the point game.
They're ready for war.
To them, they're martial arts. They're out there for a fight. They're not there just to collect a paycheck. So
exactly, like Khabib. Like Khabib came out against Conor like ready for a fight. Like he's pressured everybody, backs everybody down, but he was ready like for whatever. His hands were ready to throw. He was ready to tackle. He was ready to catch a glass bottle to the head. He didn't care.
And I think he was more offended when Conor tried to tell him halfway through the fight, man, it's just business. It's just business. It's like,
yeah,
this shit ain't business in Dagestan, man.
Offended, but that's also great. Yeah, it's not business where he's from, but it's also like a win. It's like getting someone to call you, like, say, like, what's my name? It's like, geez. And he didn't even have to ask. Conor just submitted like a dog.
I made my
like a young female puppy. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, like I said, I that one could go
McGregor forever.
That fight could go any of 100 ways, to be honest. That Ortega,
for sure.
Holloway. There's something about me that says it's Holloway Ortega's time, and then this will give Holloway his chance to move up to 55. I think that's the future we're staring at there.
Absolutely, and we'll see what kind of. We have this call-out culture that's emerged here, and I want to instantly coin that, by the way, trademark call-out culture. No, I'm kidding. But it's come out lately, and you have guys like, who knows, will we see an Ortega and Holloway win the belt and call out guys like McGregor or Khabib, or not necessarily Tony Ferguson, but even like a TJ Dillashaw? Like, I don't want to see that, right? Like, I want to see top contenders get their shot. But like, to your point, I want to see guys settle in their proper weight class accordingly to their health. That's why I'd be pretty excited if they did. That's why I've always been a proponent of doing away, since the discussions came up, doing away with the 125-pound division. Nothing against flyweight fighters. I don't even mind most of them staying and threading up through the organization. I just think it will help with a lot of those weight woes. I think people will adapt more of that Frankie Edgar model and kind of live year-round as an athlete in like 10, 15 pounds above fight weights. They're pretty much walking around in fighting shape 24/7, taking care of your body. I think it's going to encourage a lot more of that, because you're going to see people be able to live healthier lifestyles and kind of go up in a weight class, like a flyweight to a bantamweight, or a bantamweight to a featherweight. So a 160, 170-pound guy doesn't have to go down to 135 pounds. Just seems kind of drastic.
Well, that's like Ortega talks about. He walks around at 180 and cuts to 145. That's not healthy. I don't care how good your doctors are, or how your knowledge you are. It's not healthy for the human body.
If I was sorry, God.
No, and I was going to say, that's kind of, it was one of the things that I'm not a huge Joe Rogan guy. I mean, he's a great announcer, but I don't listen to his podcast a lot. It's a lot of time to invest, a lot of strange guests. But one of the things he talked about,
exactly,
rightly at the end of the first Conor Diaz fight, and then after the second one even more, is he kind of hoped it would have started a trend where these guys are like, let's stop cutting weight. Let's just fight where we weigh at and be the same. Because, so there's Chael Sonnen, who I do listen to every once in a while on YouTube, likes to be an apologist for Conor at times, and is one of the guys like, well, the reason he lost to Nate the first time was because of his weight cut. It's like, not really. They both really weigh about the same weight. They just, with such a short time, they agreed, well, let's just skip the weight cut and fight at 170, and neither of us cut weight. They were, a pound different? So it wasn't a big deal
exactly.
there. And
it's interesting how the landscape of each division, because you have guys becoming champion, and then unless there's like a solid draw in a top contender, they're not only their publicists, but them at this point are beginning to instantly think, go for a double belt, go for a triple belt, go for, and I'm not trying to go away from the weight per se, because that's a different conversation kind of, which I know we're about to talk about. But yeah, no, it's all a racket. Sorry, I don't want to go too much on about the different divisions and stuff like that, but I know that does kind of segue into the 165-pound division and the birth of that and the kind of storyline behind that, how that's emerged. So what are your thoughts on that? I know obviously I'm here as the MMA guy. I'm more than happy to talk about it, but what are you thinking first here for the 165-pound division?
Well, again,
and if it or not, it'll happen.
I think it will eventually happen. I think Dana keeps fighting it just so he can make the announcement. And unfortunately, I don't think he'll roll it out right. He'll roll it out with, probably Conor and somebody else in a here's the belt, go get it kind of thing, so he can have his triple champ. Because we all know he loves to just sell the pay-per-views and kind of give Conor whatever he deserves. But again,
yeah, exactly. I struggle with that a bit sometimes, but yeah.
But I think, again, as I said earlier, anybody who listens to this podcast knows I'm not a fan of the weight cutting. So I think adding a 165 and even a 195 would both be helpful divisions. I know that Dana's like, well, we have enough divisions. Then why do you keep trying to do cross-promotional, cross-weight class fights to get more title fights or more exciting fights? Why not add more divisions? And particularly at 165, it makes a lot of sense when you look at kind of the 155 and 170 divisions and how stacked they are, and kind of how stuck in the mud they get, waiting for one or two key fights to happen, and then everybody else kind of gets put on hold. So adding a weight class there helps solve a lot of that. And then, I've always been a fan of I wish they would go to the NCAA weigh-in rules. In NCAA wrestling, I don't know how much you've ever read up on it, but, you have to be gravity tested, so you have to be hydrated, and it's 1 hour before your fight. And you weigh in at the beginning of the year, again, gravity tested, and you can only move weight classes if you have enough time to drop, I think it's 1.5% of body weight per week up to the fight week, and then after that, you're locked in. So
interesting. Yeah, that's a refresher course for me, but I mean, I have to really kind of think about it and learn that up more and really let it soak in before having an opinion on it. It seems like it would make things more even keel and promote kind of a healthier approach toward a lot of the weight, or just a healthier kind of mindset these fighters would have to have coming into the weight. You know what I mean? Because it seems like they'd have to stay closer to the fighting weight, right?
Right, and then you're just not sitting there 2 days before worried about somebody making weight. They've already made it. If you're at fight week, you better be at weight because, again, you're going to be gravity tested at weigh-in. You can't dehydrate anymore. So you're not going to cut 5 pounds of actual weight and stay hydrated fight week. So I think it definitely is a healthier way. In the NCAA, it happened because they had a bunch of kids get sick doing weight cutting, which is something the UFC is facing now. Now, of course, in the NCAA, it turned out...
It's weird because... Sorry, go ahead.
In the NCAA, it turned out
weird feelings on this.
It could have been creatine use related as well. So they it might have been an overreaction. But then again, when you watch a fight like RDA versus Usman, and you see one guy so clearly bigger than the other, like, to me, that's a bigger advantage in fighting than anybody using steroids, really.
I honestly think if it wasn't for Conor McGregor, we'd still see him fighting at 155. I think it was a perfect time for him to go all in on what the media was kind of soft-tossing him and emphasizing his weight-cutting woes. As, all it takes is one bad weight cut, especially in the modern era, for everybody to be like, oh my God, are you okay? Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. There's so many fighters that physically deplete themselves to a point where I guess maybe they're just mentally have a stronger will than a lot of these other fighters because they get to really dark places, but they show up for their fight and at their weight every single time. Are they handling themselves during their camp, during their life and their lifestyle and their diet? Maybe not, but they get it done. You know what I mean? I always thought that was a mindset of a fighter where all the things that come with weight cutting, it should be as a part, and it should be information pre-downloaded in your approach. So that's why I've had issues with an Amanda Nunes. I've had issues with people who've really fallen on that as their excuse, just because it's clear what goes on during fight week and how late these guys wait in terms of actually taking off most of this weight. It's kind of crazy.
But I mean, it's kind of. It's because they're, particularly when they moved the weigh-ins to earlier in the day, it became a bigger advantage to wait as long as you could to cut your weight, because then you could have more time to rehydrate. So if you can carry more weight, again, if you're 15 or 20 pounds heavier, to me, that's a bigger advantage than whatever steroid you're on. And that's got to be something that has to be addressed at some point.
Oh, exactly. That's matchmakers almost know that too. Like when you match up an Usman and an RDA, it's not like they don't know that in the back of their head. Even watching the promotion, us as fans, we knew he had a beating coming to him, and it's just kind of unfortunate that it's shaken out that way. I know some fighters do prefer cutting weight in the morning. Some like to go to sleep, wake up, cut a few. I know everybody has a different approach to what they do. Some people like to get a full night's sleep and then use that day to cut weight. But the wave, most people do seem happy with the general direction and the changes the UFC has made in going to that 10 a.m. weigh-in or whenever that window starts on Saturday morning or Friday morning.
Yep. But anyways, again,
true.
Off the rails.
Back to 165 here.
So for me, I would love to see it. Again, like I said, I'd love to see 165, 195, but I won't get into the theoretical 195 now. Because that would take a little more time to put together. But 165 is something I've looked at and talked about a lot. This would be a great opportunity for the UFC with so many fights, even though they're cutting down to 12 pay-per-views from 13 next year. to still kind of create some excitement and build a division and sell a lot of pay-per-views, because you could do it Grand Prix style. Now, for me,
absolutely,
I'm a big fan of an 8-person Grand Prix. I kind of looked at some guys at 170 who could pretty easily get to 65, some guys from 55 who've gone up to 70, and some of the 70 guys who fought at 55. I was like, okay, here's 8 guys I think would make an interesting Grand Prix. They weren't necessarily the 8 best, but there's some of the guys.
A Grand Prix to open up the division. Correct.
Winner of the Grand Prix is now your champion.
Exactly, bit of champion, yes.
There you go. Here's, so for me, I thought you've got Ben Askren, who's not going to fight for a title at 170 anytime soon, at least unless things change drastically. And from the next rumored fight there, I don't see that changing. He whose name I won't speak on my podcast, I don't see beating Tyron Woodley. So we'll skip. So like I said, I don't see Askren getting a shot at 170 anytime soon. So he was one of my first ones. RDA obviously makes a ton of sense because he's one of those guys that's in between that 150, 170. Cowboy, again, another one in that 150, 170 trap.
Absolutely.
Jorge Masvidal is a guy I think could easily make 165.
If we can get that fucker off the couch, and out of the strip clubs. Absolutely.
I mean, there's a couple of those. There's another one of those coming up in one of my other ones here. I got Kevin Lee because I think 155 is a tough one for him.
Yeah, I'm going to mention him for sure.
Khabib, obviously, I think would be a great 165er.
Oh, yes.
Michael Chiesa, just because he's one of the guys who've advocated for the division.
Exactly.
And then my last one, also another can't get off the coucher, it was about to get off the couch until Dustin Diamond pulled out of their fight, and that's Nate Diaz. I think would be great at 165 in the Grand Prix. Poirier seemed to forget he's the one who withdrew from that fight every time he goes on a press conference now. It's like, Nate was ready. Like, he talked like he was a good show up, but he always shows up.
I know. That was really curious to how exactly all that has shaken out. And to be with Nate Diaz, it's funky because at the 150, as a 155er, that seemed to be his biggest advantage, going against an RDA who's maybe gone through a weight cut or is significantly smaller stature, considering what we now know about what Nate Diaz walks around at with everything that went down with Conor McGregor over the years. It seems like that was one of his bigger advantages. For him at 165, having those lightweights juiced up and feeling great, that's probably a bit of a threat for him. I'm really curious to see what kind of fighting shape he is in. It seems like he's been training a bunch in the meantime. But in terms of the division, I'm team Kevin Lee. Fuck Michael Chiesa at this point. Like, he's not as relevant. Like, he's kept himself relevant somehow just by being kind of needy, I think. But I'm big on Kevin Lee, man. I genuinely think I give him credit. I mean, beforehand, nobody's really sticking out in my mind outside of maybe media folks who had brought it up or fighters who just generally complained about it. Kevin Lee was the first dude I thought that really came out and rallied for this 165-pound division. And amidst that, you had guys like Khabib who would be asked about it, and he would agree. To your point, guys like Cerrone seemed to be an RDA, seemed to be a perfect fit here. A guy like Ben Askren, he did a teaser tweet recently. I don't know if you saw that, kind of saying, "I told you after January 26th, UFC has plans." I mean, who knows what's going on? Again, to another point you made, Dana White stays pretty quiet on this stuff, like he did with the 165-pound division before they announced Poirier Diaz originally. He was like, "Oh, we're never going to do it," and then all of a sudden it's tweeted and Instagrammed. I just think that's where he's at in his CEO type role he's playing, and I don't know, man. I'd be excited for it. I think it'd be good. I think there's enough. I didn't want to forget this point. It just popped back into my head. I think there's enough without even a Grand Prix, which I would vote Grand Prix. I think that'd be super exciting and a blast. I'd love to be a part of it as a fan and as a media person. But I think there's enough killers, especially up and coming in the lightweight division or in that realm, 155, 165, maybe a few floaters from 145, and to keep their current model and just open up another division. Because I'm thinking, like guys we mentioned already, like a Holloway or Ortega, if they were to ever shift up, you have guys like Dan Hooker and Alexander Hernandez in the mix down low. Alex Hernandez isn't that small of a guy, and he's young. He could ultimately become a 165er. Dan Hooker, I'm not as sure about his weight cutting situation. He usually looks super sucked out when he gets on a scale. And then guys like Gregor Gillespie, he seems like more of a maybe a truer 155er. He's not even ranked yet, but he's hot and up and coming, undefeated. You know, he just finishes people. I'm sure you're aware of him.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's interesting to see what it'll all be. But Kevin Lee's the dude who I think deserves to open it up or at least get a crack at that belt. I'm a proponent of the Poirier-Diaz, but it seems like they're going a different direction with Poirier, huh? It seems like maybe they're doing Poirier gets what did come out recently that him, Connor's, Cowboy Diaz, maybe some kind of love triangle.
Who knows? I think Poirier's trying to will another Connor fight into existence. I don't know if any of us need to see that.
That's what it was. Yeah, him versus Connor, and then Ferguson versus Khabib, winners face each other.
Right,
yeah, something like that.
That's what they talked about, and then they talked about Nate doing Cowboy coming back to 155. It's like you've seen that fight too. Like I don't need to. There are some fights I don't need to rewatch. Like
they still didn't announce the Cerrone fight, huh?
They haven't.
He's getting?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
So they're
interesting.
They're waiting on that. I think lightweight's just stuck right now, waiting on Conor and Khabib stuff in Vegas to get cleared up. But I mean, I think all of us expect.
Yeah, what a racket! I honestly don't. My theory on that is I wish things just continued as is, because I don't think that even plays a factor in the rematch. I don't think Conor even wanted to have a rematch within 6 months. I think with how he came back and to best prepare to even have a chance to beat a Khabib, he needed to have that Diaz fight, or maybe have a 6 month, 9 month time camping or having a camp and preparing for Khabib, because Khabib is such a killer.
No, I agree, and
unreal.
It was kind of the same mistake they made when they brought Ronda Rousey back and throwing her right up against Nunes. It's like, first off, you guys mistimed this so poorly. You had Miesha Tate with the belt, who Rousey had handled twice, but you're babying Ronda's ego there, and then when you bring her back, you don't give her a warm up fight, and you knew she was rattled after that. Conor, I don't think was necessarily rattled coming back, but 2 years out of the cage is 2 years out of the cage. I don't care if you boxed in between.
Exactly, I'm with you, bro.
It's a different beast. You set him up, you could have that would have been the perfect time to have him fight, do the Poirier rematch. Give him a tune-up.
Yeah, right? Or even the Diaz one. Fuck it. Get Diaz paid. Get McGregor paid, coming back in. Get him competitive. Get him thinking.
I'm just not sure. Like, the Diaz one, I think they didn't want to throw it out there ahead of time to risk Conor losing before Khabib. And I think that's probably why they wouldn't have picked Poirier either. And it's probably why they didn't put him against anybody. Just because if he lost, then the fight lost value for him versus Khabib. And
no, absolutely.
So,
yeah, they wanted the money there. If they're smart, they'll just book a rematch. And actually, they won't do Moscow because then Conor would get killed. But they could book it maybe in like Canada or Vegas or something, maybe in LA. Who knows?
I would expect Vegas again. After all the dust is settled in Vegas with the Nevada Commission, I fully expect somehow, some way on the back door, the rematch will be made in Vegas. But I think Khabib
what world would we live in if Khabib never jumped over that damn cage?
We'd be looking at
what would be going on?
We'd probably have a Khabib Ferguson fight in January. Yeah, we'd probably have Conor.
That'd be insane. Following all this action,
probably Conor Nate in February.
That would be so sick. I'd like after all that, because we're getting slammed with all these great fights in the last few months of the year here. I mean, that would have been great, but whatever. That's like that. It's like how your life flashes before your eyes. Like when Khabib decided to run off the side of the octagon. Like as a fan, like someone who cares about matchmaking, I was like, oh,
this is awesome. Wait, no, not awesome. I mean,
no, I was like, no, God, Conor's not gonna have a fucking year to prepare, and that's gonna be the reason why he wins.
I'm not sure if he had 2 years to prepare, he's beaten Khabib. I think Khabib's just on another level. Okay, Khabib's a guy who wrestled bears at like 8 years old. I think he's fine.
I know, right? I wonder what him versus an Askren type style looks like. I personally, as much as I want to be gung ho on Ben Askren's undefeated record, having rewatched some of his last few fights, it's hard for me not to think an elite striker can't land on him, or someone with good enough energy to kind of keep him away enough to set things up at the high level that he's coming into in terms of top 5 in the fucking UFC. I mean,
well, I think that's why he's been very selective with his call outs on trying to call out guys who haven't fought in a while, guys who are smaller than him, and then he gets tossed to to the wolves, sort of, with one of the most elite strikers in the UFC at the 170 division. So that'll be a fun fight to watch.
Oh my God, yeah, and he was an All-American wrestler. People forget All-American. Maybe pretty sure it was All-American. Definitely All-State. Robbie Lawler. So he's no joke. I mean, he looks like he has the build of a wrestler. He just throws hands, you know.
Right. No, I think that'll be a fun one. And you know, for me, when I was putting together like my mock 8 for my Grand Prix, one of the things I did, because at first I kind of drew up some dream names. I was like, you know what? Any of the guys who went from 145 to 155, I'm not giving you another weight class jump. So kind of threw Connor and Poirier out. GSP's not fighting a Grand Prix. As great as it would be to see him do it, he ain't coming back to fight a Grand Prix.
Exactly. It's clear he's being very selective.
And so then for my first round matchups, I kind of went with people with sort of similar styles. It wasn't exactly perfect, but like I went Askren Khabib because I think Khabib does maul him because he's undefeated and he's a great wrestler. Askren is, and he's obviously great on Twitter and on a mic, but his level of competition, until we see it, it's harder to believe. And then for them, they would face whoever won that would face the winner of Cowboy Chiesa. I was like, two of the guys that are kind of just there. They're not guys. Either one of those I don't see winning.
I would much rather see Chiesa get his ass beat by Khabib.
And that would be what I would think. I think that would be the result of those two.
I think Chiesa beats Cerrone.
It depends on which Cowboy shows up. He has had times where he just doesn't show up.
Yeah, but even like the hungover, sore Cowboy,
I think
can maybe beat a Chiesa. I mean, I look back at Chiesa's resume and
it's not.
Still to this day, I'm like, bro, what do you have, a beard and like a press conference event? Yep. The moment, it's.
Well, and Cowboy definitely. If you look at his losses, they're all fairly good losses. Just some of those he just.
Oh yeah.
Show up. Then for the next bracket, I did Nate versus Masvidal. Just because Masvidal asked for it, and I think it'd be a fun fight to watch. I think that would be awesome. And you know what they can do? They can headline that, and they can host it in like a rec center in like the hood somewhere in Oakland. Stockton got a big enough arena. I think they'd have to go to Sacramento.
Oh my God, or wherever Masvidal's from.
Oakland would
like
be fun
LA.
Yeah, I think he's from
God.
LA. And then RDA versus Lee, which I don't think is an ideal matchup. But I think it'd be a fun one as well. It's just kind of got to
get the metal detectors ready, dude.
Oh, Masvidal, Nate.
Yeah. Kimbo's coming back from the grave, bringing the squad.
Marshawn Lynch would bring his whole group if you did it in Oakland.
Marshawn would just walk in. Yeah, he would just start shooting the metal detectors.
Skittles for everybody. Here you go.
Oh my gosh! I mean, that would be amazing. I would love to see McGregor take on Cerrone. I know that rumor was thrown out there, but just where they're both at in their career, him coming off Khabib, Cerrone looking strong right now. I would love to see that in I know we're talking 165, but fuck, I'd like to see it at 155.
I mean, you could throw Connor in for Chiesa versus Cowboy at 165. I wouldn't be upset with that.
I know Connor would probably Connor probably has an advantage at 155. It's probably optimal for him.
Yeah, as I say, I think probably 155, because again, we know Connor walks around at about 167, 168 as well, so it's not like he's he's never...
Exactly. Yeah, you're right, exactly right. He's not a big guy by any means. I could see him being atop a division in another lifetime, another world, where he's fighting off contenders like Ortega and Holloway, just as like a true featherweight kind of guy, kind of deal. Like he came in and worked his way up. I think I saw on Twitter someone asked recently who they thought was the best featherweight of all time, and they posted Max Holloway pretty much, saying he is. And I usually never come into social media debates and I'm pro Conor McGregor, but I was like, hold up, stop real quick, because we can't forget there was a few amazing years there, probably 2 to 3 amazing years when Conor McGregor came in, and that run in the featherweight division is pretty much, and who he ran through is pretty much still, as far as I'm concerned, set the bar, and he's the best featherweight ever. Even the fact that he left. I mean, Holloway can beat Aldo twice, but he'll still never beat him in 14 seconds and had him run away from him the first time. He's never gonna. And not only that, he lost to McGregor. So I don't know. What do you think when you think of the best featherweight of all time? Do you think about Aldo or Holloway, or is McGregor the guy for you?
I was going to say, I'm not a McGregor guy, but I think it has to be McGregor. Again, at Aldo, you had a great run, and you're still there, and it's great.
Amazing run, yeah.
But 14 seconds. 14.
Do you remember that was such an amazing moment? I'll never forget it. UFC 194, right after Luke Rockhold beat the piss out of Weidman, who for some reason decided to throw a spinning back kick amidst winning the first round. Poor guy gets taken down, the shit kicked out of him in Madison Square Garden, right? Or was this Vegas? I think it was the Garden.
I think 96. No,
or 94, right?
94 wasn't the Garden. 200 was the first fight at the Garden.
But that was just amazing. Do you remember where you were when you watched Conor knock out Aldo?
I was always where I'm at usually, which is Buffalo Wild Wings.
There you go.
I go for the free fights.
Oh hell yeah! I go for the popcorn shrimp.
There you go.
But what I was gonna say was, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there. I know we were talking about that match. Oh yeah, so Jose Aldo, when he went through his stretch of those 9 years, right? You always hear marketed 9 years, pound for pound, best in the world. That happened to be post the GSP, post Matt Hughes, BJ Penn era, where the UFC was no longer had these Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz fights. Do you remember? It kind of went stagnant for a bit. It needed a Conor McGregor. So that whole time, Jose Aldo was allegedly the best featherweight of all time. He was, beating who? Like Henderson's and like Barrows, and I'd have to look back through his resume, but it's like, come on.
Yeah, they were perfectly fine fighters, but they weren't elite. Yeah.
People weren't even watching.
And I was going to say, exactly, I was one who wasn't. Once you got to the end of the GSP era until Conor and even, the Diaz brothers and that,
Yeah. Well, even it almost took, the real fans were able to learn about the Diaz brothers early, of course, but it almost took this Conor revival to not only shape up fighters' mental game, their fucking management, how they structure, their whole career, how they take care of their body, how they talk, but also how they fight. You saw Conor McGregor change. You see more of and similar to the Diaz brothers a bit, more so Conor, you see that bouncy karate, flowy, striking, hands up. It's amazing the impact he made in the sport. And if it wasn't for him, who knows where the sport would be, honestly, because it almost took a guy like him to be that villain for a Khabib to take off, or Diaz to really get the spotlight the way he deserved.
I was going to say, there are plenty of positives. There are some negatives that came from it, too, because he whose name shall not be spoken on my airwaves has tried to copy his mic skills very poorly, but tried to.
Oh, my gosh. You really don't say his name?
No, I don't.
Well, the good thing is that no-name person took a boomerang to the face, so we're good.
Well, and he keeps getting outed now for having writers by other fighters, so I think
gosh.
I think his shine is coming to an end, thank God, because
oh boy,
I don't like to reward the imitators.
No, absolutely. At this point, it almost seems satirical. If it were kind of a spoofy, I would think it'd be funnier. I'd almost have respect for it. But yeah, again, the he who should not be named, I will not dip into that. I won't do that to you. But yeah, man, 165. We have UFC 231 this weekend. 165-pound division. Were there other names on the Grand Prix you wanted to talk about?
Those were really my 8 for the Grand Prix. But building that division, there's so many names you could bring up when you look at it.
Yeah,
it's
for sure. That's what gets confusing because at the end of the day, me and you, we're not in there in the boardroom. We're not in there for their meetings with the executives and the business plan. Who knows what the numbers are spitting out on how this fits into like a cash flow model for them and how they can work a 165. But
and to me, I guess their biggest fear is that it could cut 155, but then you'd have to imagine again 45. There'd be plenty of guys at 45 to come up and fill that. Particularly since we know 20. Worst kept secret in the world is 25's going away.
It's going away, but is it is there just going to be? For God's sake, UFC has so many fighters. They can cut 100 and still have enough to keep 15 ranked guys, but in a division. But yeah, man, I think so too. And I think a light bulb just went off in my head a bit. Like you said, 2 points here. I'm trying not to forget. I think you're going to like this. First, do you want to know how I know you were a fan of Chael Sonnen?
Wow.
It was because in the very beginning of the conversation, you mentioned that the UFC needed to make their money back, and that's such a tone and perspective that you get at a show where it's like, first off, they got to make their money back here. Sony, but anyway, I love that because you're right. And secondly, to that point, #segue, which is getting thrown around here a lot today. The Diaz-Poirier fight would have been great because considering opening up a new division from a business perspective, it's going to be front-ended and front-loaded in terms of the expenses and the investment. When you get a guy like Diaz to blast it off and make you $3, $4, $5 million off the bat, makes himself $1 million, Poirier gets paid. Now you have some investment money that not only covers your fucking expenses on kicking the doors down of a 165, because you got all this money to put into marketing, but not only that, fighters are constantly needing to get paid more. Everything's the whole structure of the contracts. Everything's changing. The climate of the sport is in such a delicate place. Who knows the nuts and bolts associated with opening a 165? But fuck, the UFC's not paying me. I think they should still do it.
As I say, and I think Eddie Alvarez will change the economics of the sport even more with what he was able to do.
Oh yeah, he's so full of shit. He is running. Clearly, he is running from Conor McGregor and the Justin Gaethjes of the world.
Well, I don't doubt that. I think there is some of that, but I think also it was just a financial opportunity for himself and his family that he wasn't going to get elsewhere.
Exactly. Because I'm being pushy.
I know you're a little because you're a Philly guy and he's a Philly guy, so I'm sure it's not
exactly.
Not that kind of thing.
I remember explicitly just because I've been such a nerd of the sport for so long. These guys put their necks out, and it's one thing I love about it. They're so vulnerable in their interviews. At one point, a few years back, maybe there was Eddie Alvarez sitting in an interview saying, "I'm at the best organization in the world. My goal, the money comes with it. My goal is to be the champion, yada, yada, yada." When that doesn't happen the way you want, whether it's a mental lapse and you deserve a rematch with a guy like McGregor, but then you get another reality check where you are really, really confident in branding that heading into a Gaethje fight, mentally having to deal with that loss, I thought, I'm sorry. Who did he have his recent loss to? Poirier, rather. He beat Gaethje. I'm sorry. I don't want to confuse it. He had his recent loss to Poirier in that rematch, and I just think the way that went down really told him he's never going to have a chance to make a title. If he decides to fight at 165, he's going to have to deal with the Kevin Lees and the Khabibs of the world, and that looks no fun to him. So to your point, as a bonus, for a man, his ego and his pride, I think it makes it easier for him to fall into the, for his daughters and his wife and everything, to get paid, be a millionaire. Oh, it's crazy. It's cool how these fighters are getting paid now.
Yeah, as I say, because we saw that with Sage Northcutt this week. Even though it hasn't been announced, we all know he's going to one championship as well.
Yeah, no, wasn't it? I think it was just recently announced.
Was it? The last I knew, they were still waiting to make the formal announcement.
Okay.
And the one championship CEO said he was going to have a big announcement coming up. So
he's straight out of a comic book. The Japanese are going to love him.
Well, not only that, I think we're going to see one championship make more of a play for U.S. viewers and U.S. soil.
Oh, no, absolutely. With the nature, especially with what they're doing, how they're popping up in the media, we're just hearing their name. They're making noise. The streaming world here with DAZN and it's just kind of gnarly how all these organizations are beginning to leverage it.
Well, and I hope.
Yeah, we'll see.
And what I hope with all these organizations making plays with free agency and big dollars being thrown out is it kind of has the opposite effect of what we've seen is some of these fighters take more fights than they've been taking just so they can get to their free agency. See what dollars.
Yeah, that's pretty funky. It's funny how they're handling their contracts now, depending on what they got going on for themselves. And it's weird. The UFC came out. They made it seem like at first the way everybody reacted was like the UFC is such an idiot. Why would they get rid of Sage? But behind closed doors, how do we know it wasn't Sage and his team, that really pushed this in the negotiating room and it came to this? And they could have been planning it. It seems weird for the UFC to want to let Sage go. I can't imagine that Dana White really wanted to cut Sage Northcutt, considering all of the praise he'd given him and the fact that he's in his best he's ever been. That Mickey Gall loss is probably the best thing to ever happen to him. It lit a fire in him where he's come back like in beast mode, and he's still a baby. So I thought, why not invest in him? But here these guys are probably getting these big long-term contracts. Pretty soon these guys are going to be like quarterbacks and pitchers, for fuck's sake.
Well, and they deserve it. Again, in combat sports, your career is so short, and when it's done, there's for most of these guys, there's not another revenue stream coming. There's very few guys who are going to make that Daniel Cormier turn into announcing and have that second career. So
exactly, the company, man.
Get your dollars, man. Get them.
Fuck it. Look at us. We pretty much did our own podcast here. It's been over an hour.
I was going to say, I think that's a good place to end. Let the fighters get their money.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for joining me, Mike. Again, where can everybody find you?
Absolutely. So I am on iTunes and Google Play. MMA with Mike. It's W with the slash. Getting kind of crazy there. I'm a hipster. So we're doing MMA with Mike on Twitter. It's MMA with Mike, MMA W Mike. I'm always on there tweeting up a storm. The links are there. And for folks who are into, I mean, God knows who really listens to internet radio nowadays, but Wildfire Radio has a 24/7 internet radio and podcast network. It's aired live there every Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. And that's pretty much it, man. I'm chilling. I'm excited for the fights. It's nice meeting you, and we'll see if we can link up again on a call in the future. And I hope you enjoy the fights and all that shit and all the other sports you're into. And good luck with all your bets or fantasy action, man.
All right, everybody. I'm joined here by Todd, so we can talk some Bulls basketball. Why do you think we'd be talking Bulls basketball today, you'd say? I mean, it is Wednesday, December the 5th. And Garpax somehow still haven't gotten fired, though they've managed to fire their 5th different head coach. Not that I think Fred Holberg was necessarily part of the solution long term, but you can't really say he was the problem when you have executives who have already fired 5 head coaches now still being allowed to run the organization.
Can you name the 5? Not you, them, in comments.
I'm going to say most people can't. But, yeah, I could easily name the 5 because I sadly have no life. And that's why I do this on a Wednesday night, just for fun, basically.
First one that comments correctly, Jason will send $10 to.
I mean, you'll never find me to collect it, but sure. That sounds like a good theory. I'm glad Todd likes to give away my money. Cheap bastard won't give up his own money. I know. Has to give up my money. That's right. You get it right, you comment, I'll send you $10 via Venmo or PayPal. I'm game, but you can't Google it either. I'm counting on the honesty of the internet here. I'm setting myself up for failure, I know. But I'm counting on honesty of the internet. But yeah, so, a lot of people were surprised that Fred Holberg got fired. After Garpax's last exhaustive worldwide search for a new head coach. Oh, wait, they didn't interview anybody other than Fred Holberg. And paid him 5 years and $25 million in that.
Straight cash, homie.
So this was their handpicked guy after handpicked guy after handpicked guy after handpicked guy. They actually didn't handpick the first one. He was already there. They kept him around, but they didn't handpick him. So I'm not going to blame them wholly for that one. But after a while, when you keep handpicking guys and handpicking guys, there just gets to be a point where it's like, okay, shouldn't you be the guys going now? Why are the coaches keep going and the executives stay? If somebody can give me a rational reason, a legitimately honest to goodness, rooted in logic reason why Jerry Reinsdorf has not fired Garpax, you might be my new favorite human.
Oh, I got the answer right here.
No. I said rational and logical.
I have a rational and logical.
No, you're just talking dollars.
No, I'm not. I have an actual logical, reasonable answer to this question.
That has any attachment to truth.
Yes.
Not fantasy, not tinfoil hat moments, not made up in your head, Todd.
Yes.
All right, I want to hear it.
He's too busy talking to Bryce Harper and Manny Machado that he's not going to get.
No, not the case. First off, again, he kind of defers all that to his baseball executives. Who is it now? Rick Hahn?
Yeah, well, I mean, not physically talking, but he's paying attention to what they're doing from afar, and he forgot he owns a basketball team.
I do feel like for years he's forgotten he's owned a basketball team. I feel like that's a safe bet. However, I don't think that's how this has happened. I think he just hasn't found new positions to promote either one of them to. Because in all fairness, John Paxson was on the verge of getting fired when he got promoted to vice president of basketball operations. So I don't know why he doesn't just promote him to president of basketball operations. make Gar Foreman vice president of basketball operations, and then get us a new GM. I hear the process is available.
I mean, he has the blueprint. He did it to Kenny Williams.
I'm just saying, Sam Hinkie is available for the right price. He's done a pretty good job from what I can tell. I mean, he would have never traded 2 first-round picks to go get Markelle Fultz. Never in a million years. So
he has a bad shoulder. It's pinching his neck and his shoulder and his balls, I think. I don't know what the hell.
He's got thoracic outlet syndrome. Possibly. Could also just be a made-up thing at this point because it's so long in that some doctors just like, sure, this is why you've got numbness in your hand and suddenly forgot how to shoot over one summer.
And wasn't this after the 10th specialist, I think it said?
Well, yeah, but again, I mean, there was a discussion on whether or not it was just because people weren't looking for it. There is a legitimate possibility that they were just like, okay, it doesn't happen very often in basketball players, particularly 20-year-old basketball players, so they wouldn't have looked. It could just be a genetic abnormality more than what it typically is, which is a repetitive use injury. But that kind of gets us off topic, other than gives us a chance to talk about the Sixers. But yeah, obviously they have drafted 2 guys who are going to be superstars, had the pieces in place to trade for a third. It's kind of what you want to do, isn't it? Oh, wait. No, I'm a Bulls fan, and Garpax don't. They want to draft good guys. And by good, I don't mean like good basketball players or even good citizens. They want to draft guys whose ceiling tops out at good. Not that they are good, but that they top out at good. They don't go for great. They take a center when they already have a power forward in an era when you play one traditional big on a floor at a time. So we're going to waste back-to-back lottery picks on guys who won't play together on a very successful modern NBA team often. You're not going to play 2 7-footers next to each other consistently unless there's a special 7-footer there.
Okay, I was going to say.
Neither one of these guys are a special perimeter defender. Again, I'm going to be salty till the day I die, and I don't care that Michael Porter hasn't played a single minute of basketball this year. That should have been the pick. I don't care if he turns out to be a complete and utter bust and Wendell Carter turns into an all-star. It does not make it the right pick. It does not make it the right direction, but it makes it exactly what you expect from Garpax. They trend towards wanting to be in the playoffs because they want to say, hey, see, we're competitive again, so you don't need to fire us, which is why they fired the coach when they did, by the way, because everybody was also wondering about the timing. Well, they fired him before his team got healthy, so the new coach could come in and have a better record. They could say, see, coach, not us. That's what it was all about. Self-preservation, which is a very human trait. But let's just be honest here. They're not trying to build a championship basketball team. It's not what they're angling for. They know by now they are not a free agent destination. People are not coming to them via free agency. They are not good at making trades. Every trade I think they've ever made, they've got beaten like a used baseball bat. I don't know if that analogy plays, but I was running out of... just lost my train of thought there on where I was going. But anyways, yeah, I mean, there's... Other than... I don't think they did Eddie Curry.
That's the one I was thinking. I wasn't sure who did Eddie Curry. I want to say maybe Paxson was there for that one. I'm not 100%
but I don't
sure.
think Gar Foreman was.
I believe that's correct, yeah.
But, there would have been a point where you said they won the Derrick Rose trade, except Brook Lopez is still on our books and not playing, and Derrick Rose is scoring almost 20 points a game for the Minnesota Timberwolves, coming off the bench, shooting 47% from 3. Now, not taking a lot still, but still 40. I mean, he's averaging about 3 a game now, which from him is all you ever needed, and that jumper looks good. Like, it doesn't look like the old Derrick Rose jumper. It looks like he actually learned how to shoot finally. Unfortunately, I still don't ever see him being more than a minimum or mid-level 1-year guy. I don't think anybody's going to take a multi-year big-dollar flyer on him. Although, as soon as I say that...
He could get a Jabari Parker deal.
I see Evan Turner still making a ton of money, too. So, I don't know. Anytime I think I know something, I clearly don't, because the NBA goes out of its way to be like, nah, we got an idiot here. And the Phoenix Suns might be that idiot if he wants to go play in Phoenix. I'm just saying, they need a point guard. He is a point guard. They have a ton of cap space. He likes money.
All right.
Who doesn't like the Suns?
I want to ask this question because you said something, and I'm 100% agreement with it. The Michael Porter Carter versus Carter. When would you actually ever say, if ever, that Carter was a better pick?
Never. I don't care how they turn out in their careers. That doesn't make it the right pick.
So,
see, using hindsight to say something was a correct pick doesn't work. It is either a correct pick in the moment or not. You can't say, well, this guy turned out to be better, unless it's somebody who you knew was 100% better going in. Now, there are times where you could completely miss a pick. But there's nobody who appreciably thinks Wendell Carter has a higher ceiling than Michael Porter. If they're both healthy, Michael Porter has the better NBA career. That is everybody's evaluation going into that draft. The only reason he fell was because of injuries. If you're a team like the Bulls, in a admitted, full-on, to-the-ground rebuild, you do what the Sixers do, and you take that punt year, and maybe punt 2 years if you have to, on that pick, and wait and see.
I'm in agreement with you. I just remember my worst picks of the draft were 8 through whenever Michael Porter was drafted.
No, I was right there with you. I kept thinking everybody was going to take Michael Porter. I mean, I guess not everybody. There were some teams I knew for sure would stay away. But there were also just at a point where it was just like, at some point somebody had to take the value, and the Nuggets did. Because, again, if he stays healthy, if he's a hit, you've got a top 2 guy from the draft, top 3 guy. I'm going to say probably top 2. Because I didn't evaluate the big guys as nicely and highly as the actual people drafting them did. I would have probably taken Luka Doncic 1, and boy, oh boy, has that turned out to look smart. And like I said, Porter 2. Those would have been my top 2. These teams, 4 of the top 5 were bigs this year?
In a league that doesn't use bigs.
Right. Or at least it doesn't build around bigs. You're taking position. Now, granted, there weren't a lot of wings and guards available in this draft that were worthy of being picked that high. But at some point, you have to say, is this guy really worth wasting my number 1 overall on? No. And again, I don't like to use the hindsight, but I think if you saw a guy who was a polished professional, had a full skill set, like Doncic, and then a guy like Ayton who's raw and rough around the edges and plays a traditional big man game in a league that's going away from that, I think you missed. There's a reason the Phoenix Suns are on a 10-year rebuilding plan, by the way, and it might have
on year 12.
It might be extended to year 15 at this point. They have no clear direction. They just, again, they're.
So wait, are you saying you wouldn't take a big at all in that top picks?
I'm not saying at all. Not
okay,
ever,
so I'm saying if Shaquille O'Neal was out there, okay, that's what I'm saying. I wasn't sure if you weren't building around big at all, or
no, you
just have to have the life or once in a generation type big guy.
Yeah, you give me a Shaquille O'Neal, that's fine. You give me a Dirk Nowitzki up there, I'm fine.
Okay,
a big guy who's mobile and can shoot. Kevin Durant would technically qualifies as a big guy at 6'11" in this NBA. Kevin Love type would even be fine to take higher. But when you're taking guys like Mo Bamba and Marvin Bagley and Wendell Carter and DeAndre Ayton that aren't very defensively flexible. Mo Bamba might be the best defender of them all, but even he's not very defensively flexible. Now, if you want to take a Jaren Jackson who can guard 3 positions, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
That's a different pick. But to pretend that it's just because big guys are possibly the best players doesn't mean they always fit your roster. And this isn't the NFL where you do need to draft best available talent over best fit because injuries are always a play away. In the NBA, you only play 5 guys. You have to look at fit. It has to be part of every draft pick you make. And if that means you trade back a pick or 2 and acquire an extra second rounder, then that's what you do. But you can't just say, well, this is the best guy on our board, and we want somebody who can play defense next to Lauri Markkanen. Lauri Markkanen can't guard a 3. So are you going to play 2 big guys all the time when you play Markkanen? Hopefully not. That's not the NBA we're playing in.
Well, I'm going to get Jason really in his bag right this minute. If you were going to play that type of scheme, offense, defense, didn't she have it last year with Nico and Lauri?
Don't get me started on my love for Nico Mirotic. His fine play in New Orleans again and how Garpax again fucked up by not building around Jimmy Butler and Niko Mirotic. They didn't trust their own draft picks. That was their problem. And they had two guys, one who's a top 10 in the league, one who has all-star potential that they drafted 20 plus after 20, and they didn't trust themselves to be picking in that lottery post-lottery range to add another piece or two, and they didn't trust themselves to keep the cap space they should have kept that they wasted on Rondo and Wade to carry forward till they could get another shooter to go with them. Instead, they panicked, and they made moves for now, and they didn't trust themselves. Well, Taj Gibson's a good guy, and he's a good power forward. Yeah, but he doesn't fit with your best player.
Right.
He didn't fit with Jimmy Butler. Again, fit in basketball is more important. I got to stop myself. I was about to say fit's more important than talent. That's not true. If you have a transcendent talent, it's more important. But if you have two guys who are fairly close basketball players, like Laurie and Taj were, then fit's important. It doesn't trump everything. It doesn't trump talent. It doesn't trump production, but fit's awful important when you only have 5 people on a court. And they still don't get that. They just continue to assume that everything will work out okay if they just keep drafting, guys who don't fit well together, and they're not doing it the way that, say, the Sixers did, where they didn't care that they drafted Nerlens Noel and Jahlil Okafor, and they kept taking bigs because they were the highest ceiling guys at that point. They were like, irregardless of the injuries or irregardless of whatever else is going on, we're taking our swings taking big swings. If one of them hits, then we're good.
Right.
Wendell Carter's not a franchise-changing guy. There's nobody who views him that way. Lauri Markkanen has been better than advertised, but he's not a franchise-changing guy either. He's an all-star kind of guy.
Right.
But an all-star guy and a franchise guy are two different guys. I'm not even sure Wendell Carter gets to be an all-star guy.
Okay.
I think that's at the edge of his ceiling is all-star guy. Not good things for your back-to-back picks in the lottery to not come out. And when you had a chance to take a guy who could have been a franchise guy, and you pass for a guy whose ceiling is maybe an all-star. With Laurie, you could always convince yourself after his rookie year that his ceiling became maybe a franchise guy. I think that's still a stretch for a guy who's a 4, maybe a 5, but can't play anywhere else. He is, by every definition, a big. He can shoot, but he's still just a stretch 4. He does not fit in the modern, switchy defense era where nobody actually has to guard anybody. They just guard a spot on the floor.
Wait, I'm going to ask you, what defense in the NBA? I'm watching scores at 140 to 130 right now. Nobody's playing defense.
Regular season, they don't play as much. Why would you?
I understand that, but this is even...
But watch go back to the finals last year. Go back to the finals the year before. The year before that. The year before that. When it's time to play defense, these teams play defense. If you don't have the skill set, then you just can't play it.
Oh, we don't have anybody on that team that can play defense.
I mean, Wendell Carter can play some. I suspect he'll be a good defensive player. But yeah, it's far and few between. Threw $19 million at somebody who doesn't have any interest in defending, and then you threw $20 million more on top of that at somebody else who doesn't care about playing defense.
When you said 19, I was going to ask you which one.
Well, yeah, no, 19 for one and 20 for the other. You got to keep them separated. They are two separate guys. Yeah,
are you sure?
They are. You could tell because one's taller and one's shorter. I mean, on defense, it's hard to tell because they're both letting whoever go by them. So it is a little tricky there. But you do run into this situation where they're just awful. And again, how? There's no... And I'm tired of hearing about Zach LaVine's good start. I'm sure you guys are tired of me telling you why it's irrelevant. And we saw the very first time Markkanen played over 20 minutes, Zach LaVine scored 13 points. He had 9 assists, don't get me wrong, but that's because somebody has to bring the ball up and pass it to Markkanen. Markkanen, again... being an all-star stealing guy does not necessarily create his own shot well yet either. So he
didn't have a good shooting game though that game. He was 8 for 24.
Yeah. Well, find me many good Zach LaVine shooting games this year. There's a reason he's shooting 44% from the field and 33 from deep. This isn't a guy who's setting the world on fire anymore. He had a hot start shooting and then went back to being Zach LaVine.
You know what he reminded me of? Old man Dwayne Wade. had them great first few weeks when he thought he was a 3-point shooter, and his wife made crack, and he couldn't hit a shot to save his life.
Well, and there's also just, Zach LaVine could hit threes when he was in Minnesota. I just think, again, the problem with trading for somebody who has an ACL injury, who's all about his athleticism, is even if you're young and even if you bounce back most of the way, you never bounce back all the way from an ACL tear. Nobody bounces back 100% unless you're Adrian Peterson, and then you don't count. You're just a droid anyways. You're not a human being. As I seen you have a 90-yard touchdown run with Mark Sanchez as your quarterback, because yes, we can't stack the box because we have to be afraid Mark Sanchez is going to throw the deep ball accurately. I don't know.
Then they stacked the box because they were worried about another butt fumble and they wanted to make sure they could jump on it.
You gave up a 90-yard run to 45-year-old Adrian Peterson
with 2 knee replacements.
Just one.
He had 2.
Did he have one at Oklahoma? I didn't think he did.
I thought he had one. I thought so.
I thought he was healthy at Oklahoma, and then I thought he had one Minnesota. Either way, he's the only person I've ever seen go 100% all the way back from an ACL injury. So counting on Zach LaVine to be able to get that same height, and his dunks look great, but there's a difference in the athleticism. His jump shot is not as crisp. It's not going to be, and he again seems to be in love with 1990s basketball, taking that contested mid-range jumper. It's like, no, not good shot. I shouldn't say I'm not a huge analytics guy. I like analytics, but I feel like they have their shortcomings in trying to discourage people from the mid-range game. If you have an open mid-range shot, take it. It should be an easier make than an open 3. It's less distance. You should want to increase your chances of making it. Now, I get it. Yes, it's better the closer you get. Mm-hmm. That is always the goal, but contested mid-range shots were even bad in the 90s.
Unless you were Michael.
Well, because he could make them uncontested by jumping a foot higher than everybody. That's another one of those myths that needs to get dispelled after a while. Everybody keeps talking LeBron's this freak athlete. Never seen anything like it before. He's just a freak athlete. So much more so than anybody we've ever seen. Michael Jeffrey Jordan still has the highest recorded vertical in the history of the NBA. He was called Air Jordan because he could jump and stay in the air so long that people literally thought he was flying because he was such a freak athlete. Okay, I get it. He's not 6'8", 260 and playing small forward and sprinting the fastest down the court. But he was 6'7", 230, chiseled out of stone.
6'6", because I still remember the introduction, and 6'6".
Anyways, it's 6'6", 220 technically, and chiseled out of stone and could jump higher than anybody on the court by about a good 6 inches on his vertical alone. So let's not get there. But contested mid-range jumper. So Michael Jordan didn't live in the era of contested mid-range jumper because he could make them uncontested. Zach LaVine cannot make them uncontested. Doesn't have the same set of off the dribble moves. He loses the ball too much, way too many turnovers. And this is your your rebuilt cornerstone so far.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It is time to hashtag fire Garpax. It shouldn't even be a question. It shouldn't be a debate.
Stop saying fire Garpax, because that's not going to happen. So what we want to say now is hashtag promote Garpax.
I don't care what it does. I just don't want them making decisions anymore. They need to go. Go now.
Well,
Jerry Reinsdorf literally needs to pull those two into an office and be like,
not up in here!
Period. End of discussion. Not up in here. You're not making any more decisions or any calls. Not up in here.
So who do you got as the GM? And you're not going to give Hinkie a job again, so stop.
That's my call. That's my pick.
But they're not going to let him back in.
If it was a team that was already starting to rebuild, why not?
Because the NBA is not going to allow you to do that again. They forced him out of Philadelphia. They're going to do the same thing to wherever he gets hired again. The first time he starts dipping into the revenue, they're going to force him to get rid of him.
Well, they rebuild this time, so he wouldn't have to strip down and be as bad as long.
I just heard you say, our players, you have one. I'm only giving you one. I'll give you a second half. I'll give you a half. 1.5.
Who's the half? Wendell Carter?
Carter.
I mean, yeah, he would be a perfectly fine role player. But you're also going to have another lottery pick upcoming. The Bulls have their full complements of picks.
We'll see, because they're going to try, and they're probably going to try themselves out of a freaking lottery, a nice lottery pick.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're, of course, trying to win to save jobs, which is ridiculous. But, yeah, no, I do see that being an issue. But, again, that's why I would like Hinkie to get there sooner than later to save us from ourselves.
I think Hinkie would tear it all down. I think everybody's gone, because you only got really 2 tradable assets right now that would get you something back.
Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen.
I think Carter was still young enough. Somebody would give you something.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
I think
I don't think you trade Lauri, though.
Well, no, but that I think he might think about it.
I think everybody thinks that Hinkie was on a different plan than he was. Like, he was starting to get to the point where he was going to be doing the same things, maybe just not as dumbly as
but Sam,
what's his name did? What's his nuts kid did?
Colangelo?
Yeah, Colangelo's kid.
Yeah, Brian's
an idiot.
Huh. But okay, if he came in, I do see as Markkanen's walking to his car one night, Hinkie's in the background in the dark, no lights, with this crowbar. Now, Lauri, we're going to do this one of 2 ways. You can say you're hurt, or I can hurt you.
Well, I don't have any doubt that might happen, particularly a year like this year. But the difference being also is the Bulls fans show up no matter what. You've seen this time and time and time again. They just don't give a shit. They don't stop going no matter how bad they are. Read Twin Towers era or Elton Brand Bulls or any of those post-Jordan era Bulls, or last year's Bulls team should have been one they stopped watching. This year's they really shouldn't be going to games, yet they sell out almost every game still. It's a ridiculous concept.
Well, it's because there's people still on the waiting list when Michael Jordan was there getting their season tickets, and they're like, we're going to get good again. We got to get good again.
No, you don't. Michael Jeffrey Jordan is not walking through that door again. He owns his own team now, and he's way too old to play in the NBA. Way too old to play in the NBA.
I still think if he wanted to come back and play, I'd look at my Bulls lineup and say, Can you give me can you get 10 minutes at the beginning of the game? Can you give me 10 minutes at the beginning?
Be my starting 2 guard right now. You're right, at 55 or 60 or however old he is.
I mean, how many teams would you say he would not be your starting 2 guard on?
Enough. I mean, he is over 50 now. Like, it's not even
I understand, but at least half the teams in the NBA would say, yeah, we'll do that.
Not half. Maybe a handful. I would say maybe a handful, maybe a little more, but not over a third.
Mm-hmm.
Even a team that's as bad like the Suns even have Devin Booker. I mean, you're talking the Bulls, Atlanta,
the Kings, Orlando.
Yeah, I'll give you Orlando.
Let me see. The Grizzlies.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know what the hell the Grizzlies have got anymore. They just seem to be there.
That's the hard part. But yeah, they're actually playing really well this year. So no, I wouldn't throw the Grizzlies in there.
Dallas.
No, they played Doncic at the 2.
Oh, he does play 2. Okay, I thought he was still 1. I thought he was 1.
Oh God, no. Dennis Smith's your 1.
Okay.
I think you forgot. Everybody forgets they have Dennis Smith Jr.
Yeah,
I
did.
It's like, oh yeah, I guess you do still have a point guard, I guess. But it's just when you're outshined by your new rookie counterpart, it's like, shit.
Okay, I got one. The Clippers.
No, the Clippers play Eric Beverly or Lou Williams at the 2 a lot. They play small, but it works well. They actually, again, you're talking the team is what, number 1 or number 2 in the Western Conference right now.
Really?
Yeah, I know. I agree. It's puzzling, but you have to remember they do have Jerry West as their consultant now for the front office. So you shouldn't be that surprised that they're somehow making good basketball moves.
But it's still Doc Rivers coaching them.
Doc Rivers has never been a bad coach. He's just been a terrible executive. Almost as bad as #FireGarPax. Almost. I think we've beat this to death. I think we're at 30 minutes on just this alone. I think we'll call this a night because it is Wednesday night and we both have to work early tomorrow. And I already have another segment that'll actually go before this that I recorded yesterday. So you guys can tell me how that MMA conversation and UFC 231 stuff went. But as always, please subscribe, rate, review on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, CastBox, Amazon, Spotify. You can find us pretty much everywhere you find podcasts. You can like the Facebook page, Off Base Sports. You can follow us on Twitter, Off Base Sports. On Instagram, I don't post a lot, but it's there, Off Base Sports. Share it with your friends, and I will talk to you guys next week.
And don't forget the $10.